My name is John Harrington. I'm 53 years old and by most standards, I've lived a life many would envy. My days are spent in the heart of New York City, the pulse of ambition and success, and I'm right at the center of it. I live in a luxurious penthouse where I can see the skyline stretched out like a canvas of possibility, endless and always beckoning me towards something bigger, something greater. The life I've built for myself is the culmination of years of hard work, sharp decisions, and relentless drive. I am a self-made millionaire. My fortune comes from various sources: the stock market, real estate, and ventures in the tech world. But in all these I had neglected my family. Catherine, my wife of 25 years, was a distant figure in my life. I'd call her once a week, maybe ask about the kids, but I was too busy making deals. Sarah and James, my children, were growing up in the same city I adored, but I barely knew them. They were living in the world I created for them, but I was absent. I was physically there, but my heart and my attention were focused on profit, on getting ahead. And then there was tithing. I had been taught early in life that giving 10% of your income to the church was the key to prosperity. It was a spiritual transaction, a way to secure God's favor. So, every month I would write the check faithfully without fail. I prided myself on this. It was part of my routine. I knew I wasn't doing everything right, but I figured at least I've got this part down. I never thought about what I was giving beyond the financial contribution. I gave my 10% and that was my ticket to heaven. My assurance that I was blessed. I believed that with every dollar I gave to the church, God would continue to bless my business. After all, that's what the pastor said, right? Give and it will be given to you. Pressed down, shaken together, running over. I believed in the concept of blessing. The idea that the more you gave, the more you would receive. And so I gave. I didn't think twice about it. My wealth was secure. My heart was content. And I was convinced that I was doing all I needed to do. My world was built on ambition, wealth, and success. But somewhere along the way, I had lost my sense of meaning. I had invested in all the wrong places. I remember the night it hit me. I was sitting at my desk, staring at my financial statements, looking at the number in my bank account. I was proud of what I had accomplished. But there was something missing. I hadn't been to church in months. Not because I didn't believe in God, but because I was too busy. I had neglected prayer. I had neglected service. The thought of helping the homeless, of volunteering, even of spending time with my children seemed insignificant compared to making more money. But I paid my tithes. And in my mind, that was enough. But then came the doctor's appointment. It was meant to be routine. Nothing to worry about, just a regular checkup. When the results came in, I never imagined the words I would hear next. Cancer, stage 4. The doctor's face said it all. You have only months to live, maybe a year at best, he said. It felt like time had stopped. The words didn't make sense, and for a few seconds, I thought I was hearing things. The cancer wasn't just a diagnosis. It was a reminder that everything I had built, everything I had poured myself into was temporary. The luxury, the fame, the money, all of it meant nothing now. My wealth could not save me from death. I could not buy time. I sat in my office chair, feeling the walls closing in around me. Fear gripped me. Regret filled my heart. What was the point of it all? I thought about Catherine. She had always been by my side, but I had neglected her. I thought about Sarah and James. I had been so busy chasing the next big deal that I didn't know the last time I sat down with them for a real conversation. As I lay in that hospital bed staring at the sterile ceiling, I couldn't help but wonder how much time I had wasted, how much time I had given to the wrong things. What if I had given more of my time to my family? What if I had been more present? What if I had used my wealth and status to serve others instead of simply accumulating more? I had spent so much of my life focused on things that were fading. And now I was faced with the reality that nothing would matter in the end except how I had lived, how I had served, and how I had spent my time. But I still didn't understand what God really wanted from me. I thought tithing was enough. The moment I slipped into unconsciousness, I thought I was leaving. My body felt like it was slowly shutting down, each breath becoming more laborious until I couldn't breathe at all. Darkness enveloped me, a thick, suffocating void. There were no sounds, no sensations, just the overwhelming feeling of being completely alone. I remember thinking, this is it. This is the end of the line. But then something changed. Suddenly, I felt a pull, a warmth, a presence that was too powerful to ignore. I could hear a faint whisper, a voice calling me, not with words, but with a feeling of profound love. The darkness began to recede and a light, radiant and pure, pierced through it. I felt like I was being drawn towards it. Like everything in me was magnetized to this light. As I stepped closer, I realized I was no longer in the hospital room. John, a voice called, the voice soft yet powerful, like a melody that calms a storm. I see your heart. You've been faithful in your tithes. But I need you to see something. I couldn't speak. I just stood there frozen in awe. Everything about his presence was comforting. It wasn't a rebuke, but a deep invitation to understand. Jesus gestured and suddenly I found myself walking with him through what seemed like a garden, green and full of life, but with an ethereal quality that felt out of this world. You focused on giving your 10%, Jesus continued, his eyes meeting mine with a deep knowing look. But your heart is where the true offering lies. I was confused. What do you mean? I asked, though I didn't know how to speak. Jesus smiled gently. You've been giving us. But have you been giving your time? Have you given your love? Have you offered your service to others? Suddenly I saw myself, my life. I saw moments I had forgotten. Moments where I could have been with my family. Moments where I could have spent time with those in need. Moments where I could have helped. But instead, I had been too focused on building wealth. I had been chasing success, thinking that my financial tithe was enough to secure my relationship with God. I thought that my 10% covered me. Jesus led me to Malachi 3 verse 10. And as he spoke, I could feel the verses resonating deeply inside me. Bring the full tithe into the storehouse that there may be food in my house, and thereby put me to the test, says the Lord of hosts. If I will not open the windows of heaven for you and pour down for you a blessing until there is no more need. Jesus stopped and looked at me. John, he said, you have focused only on the material aspects of this verse. You thought the blessing was only about your wealth, but I'm telling you, the true abundance is found when you offer your life, your time, your service. I opened the windows of heaven for you, not because you gave money, but because you are called to live for me fully. Your tithe is not just about finances. It's about everything. I had been wrong. I had been focusing on a portion, a small part. But in reality, tithing was a life commitment. It was about giving time to serve others, spending time in prayer, and offering energy to God's work. My money was just one small part of the equation. But I had treated it as the most important part. I had focused on a transaction, thinking it would bring me prosperity, but I hadn't focused on service. I hadn't served anyone, not the homeless or the sick. I had built an empire while ignoring the kingdom of God. I had built a wall of wealth around me, thinking it would protect me, but it only isolated me from the true blessings. Then Jesus led me to Romans 12 verse 1, a verse I had read countless times, but never truly understood. I appeal to you therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. This, Jesus said, is the true tithe. Not just money but your whole self. It's not about what you give, but how you live. Your time is the most precious gift you can offer. Have you been giving me your time, your energy, your life? You cannot serve both money and me. It is impossible. As I stood there surrounded by the peace of God's presence, I began to understand tithing wasn't just about paying a percentage of my income. It was about giving my life, every moment of it. Time, devotion, prayers, service. These were the true offerings to God. Money was important, but it was only a small piece of the puzzle. How I used my time, my efforts, my heart, my attention. That was the true measure of my offering. I stood there listening to his words. I had missed it all these years. My time was the true offering, the real tithe. I was overwhelmed with the peace the revelation came with, even though I had spent so much of my life focused on acquiring material wealth, thinking that would give me fulfillment. But what I saw now, what I felt was something far deeper. True peace and purpose came from how I used my time. John, Jesus said softly, this is what true tithing looks like. You've been living for yourself, but now I want you to live for others. Give your time, give your energy, give your life. As Jesus faded, a force guided me back to my physical body. The next sound was my wife's. John, you're back, she said, her voice thick with emotion. There was relief in her tone, but also sadness. I've missed you. After I regained little strength, I walked through the door of our home that evening. I saw them, Catherine standing there waiting, and Sarah and James, who had grown so much while I was gone. I held them. I hugged them longer than I ever had. I looked them in the eyes for the first time in so long. And I knew then this was the true treasure. I had spent too many years focused on things that wouldn't last, chasing an empty dream. But now I was fully aware of what really mattered. Family, love, time and service. I had been given a second chance to be the man they needed, and I wasn't going to waste it. It wasn't long before I realized that the change I felt inside wasn't just about me. It wasn't just about getting my life together. It was about doing something bigger, about living for God's kingdom. I joined a local shelter, spending time helping the homeless, offering meals, and giving what little I had. But the difference now was that I wasn't just doing it to give back. I wasn't doing it because it was expected. I was doing it because it was what I was called to do. I was doing it because my time and effort were now devoted to God's work. That was the true tithe, my service. That day, I realized that my life, the wealth, the success, the material possessions were nothing compared to the treasure of serving. I felt like I had found my purpose, not to build more wealth, but to build God's kingdom on earth by offering my time to His work and by helping others to do the same. And I thank God every day for the second chance He gave me to live for Him, to give my time, and to be a light in this world.